Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Today I will be talking about the elements of Islamic architecture from my own perspective. The topic being Islamic architecture, democracy, multiculturalism, and sustainability. As you can see from the topic, I have chosen a different way of talking about Islamic architecture, concentrating on what I call what is the society that we wish to have before we plan cities as well as build buildings. Now, Islamic architecture relates directly to the idea of a humane society. So what is this humane society we're talking about? And for me, all humane society should have three important aspects of its social organization and values or even attitudes. The first is democracy, the second is multiculturalism, and the third is sustainability. So societies should have these three aspects in order to be what I call humane. And I will explain what democracy means, what multiculturalism means, and what sustainability means, not only for human society, but those that actually has its values from the Qur'an and the Sunnah. Then I will elucidate what I mean by the planning of cities and the design of buildings in Islam, which has a direct relationship to the three that I have mentioned just now. Now, first of all, what is democracy? Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Most important element to understand what democracy is that it gives dignity to individual life, meaning each and every citizen has a dignity of existence, not quality of life or quality of existence. For me, dignity of existence is more important than what is called quality of life, because quality of life is a measure of physical existence, but dignity both measures the physical as well as the social and spiritual condition of man. And so dignity of life in this sense, if it is interpreted into society and architecture, is about shelter, food, and education. If society has adequate shelter, has adequate food, and is able to learn, then you have a basic society that will evolve. Dignity of life should also have public spaces, economic prosperity, and accountability in order to enhance the first three aspects of dignity of life. Now, with regards to the aspect of dignity of life, I take my cue from the verse of the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 177. It says, righteousness is not turning your faces toward the east or the west. And part of it is those who give charity out of their cherished wealth to relatives, orphans, the poor, needy, travelers, and beggars. So for me, Islamic politics or political Islam should be related to this. The idea of giving dignity of life. Unfortunately, much of what we see in the Islamic politics is all about the idea of halal and haram, the idea of desecrating or making derogatory remarks on other people, making sure the idea that Islam or Muslims are much better or highest in morality than other people, and showing off in this sense the idea of cleanliness of Muslims over those unclean non-Muslims. This is for me not Islamic politics. Islamic politics is this one. We cannot run away from this, and we will be held accountable in the Akhirat for this. If you are still not convinced, look at the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. O son of Adam, I asked you for food and you fed me not. He will say, O Lord, and how should I feed you when you are the Lord of the worlds? He will say, did you not know that my servant so and so asked you for food and you fed him not? Did you not know that had you fed him, you would surely have found that with me? So here, it does not speak about rituals of salat or pilgrimages to Mecca or Umrah. It says feeding the poor, feeding those in need, extending help in whatever form. It's not just about food, it's about sustenance of life. And so if we understand this, then we will understand the role of the Muslim society to extend help to all humans, not just Muslims. Some Muslims seem to think that it's only for Muslim, but I don't agree with that. I think it is for all. Now, if we were to look at the statement there, then it says that we need to extend this helping hand to all. Therefore, then we can look at how we will be achieving this, and this is, as I said, part of the most important aspect of political Islam. And so, in a democracy, the first aspect or dignity of life, democracy provides individual dignity of existence, dignity of life. So, basic shelter like food and shelter and simple access to education is paramount. If we look at the Islamic cities of old, I don't see that there is any homeless people, because the homeless or those people without home, like if you are a traveler, you have caravanserai. In some places they call it khans, but you can it's like a hotel where you stay for free. I think sometimes you can even stay at a mosque without being turned away, like what we have in Malaysia. Then you can see that this is the aspect in which shelter and food is taken care of by Muslims themselves, not just by the government of Islam, but also by Muslims who wish to have a good life in the hereafter, where they would wakaf their property and their wealth so that it can be used by the community and those in need. And so the first aspect of the city planners is to make sure that say houses of worship that has been built over with millions of ringgit, to allocate 10% of their built-up spaces for the homeless. It is really terrible to see 1,000 people homeless, living under bridges, children sleeping next to drains and monsoon drains. But we have expensive mosques, expensive churches, expensive temples, and I don't understand why this has to be so. The greatest act of architecture is to provide spaces for life, dignity of life. But architecture seek to create so-called beautiful monuments, incredible monuments with big domes and tallest minarets to show their love of God. I'm sorry to say that God does not love all these things, even though some people have said, oh, Allah loves beauty. No. You can see that in the hadith it says Allah loves who you help. It doesn't matter whether it's a Muslim or not a Muslim. And so we should welcome all as homeless, whether they are of different faith, whether they have no faith. So I do not want to be part of a society of faith like Islam, where you have beautiful mosques and you still also have homeless people. I do not want to be part of that society. Now, next, the municipal council, instead of just having the temples and mosques and gurdwaras to provide for the homeless, they themselves should also provide some places for the people to stay. We can take example from the Rumah Panjang of the East Malaysia, where you have a single space and then you have the idea of people living together within a basic necessity. So you can have 3-story concrete slabs with a toilet and ample enclosure from rain and the sun, and you can also have such structures for disaster relief. If we can provide that for disaster relief, like the JKR standard school block type of architecture, then we can provide also the idea of a dignified, simple living for everyone in a nation. So Islam, if you want to call Islamic city, is not filled with beautiful gardens, but people who are homeless are given the best part of how to survive. We should also have NGOs and municipalities to look out for the issue of education, because in a democracy you must understand that the leaders who will make the policy comes directly from the people. And so if the people are not educated well, many people are educated but they are not educated well, then their vote to elect and appoint those who will lead them will have problems, because they will come from uneducated people. So we should have spaces for children to study and have resources of material to read by what I call establishing reading centers. Now, instead of building expensive, beautiful libraries, we should have 20 or 30 reading centers in a city. What is a reading center? A reading center probably should be a single story or a double story shop lot that has maybe 2 or 3 workers taking care of some books and materials for people to come in and read, and have nice aircon spaces for children to actually do their homework in, because in their low-cost houses they have no space, or in many places in terms of homelessness they really don't have spaces. But here in reading spaces we can also invite volunteer teachers to come and teach tuition, and also adults who want to learn some things can also use these reading spaces where they will learn how to read, how to better themselves through volunteer courses that is conducted by Muslims and non-Muslims through a management that we call humane, because it is from Islam. So shelter, food and education, having a roof over your head so that you can be safe, having food for sustenance so that you can do things, think and speak and communicate, and having education to change the aspect of life. These are the 3 most important things, and in any Islamic planning we need to focus on such things. Then we can call it Islamic city or Islamic architecture. Next, we have the dignity of life in terms of providing public spaces, economic prosperity and accountability. If we refer to the hadith, Abu Surayh reported the Apostle of Allah saying, "He who believes in Allah and the last day should honor the guests. Provisions for the road are what will serve for a day and night. Hospitality extends for 3 days. What goes after that is sadaqah." Now this is the famous act in Islam, which is providing for the guest. Now of course this traces back to the tribal times of the Arabs, even before Islam, where anyone or Arabs who give or treat the guests very well in the harsh environment of the desert is noted for their help and also their aid, and it is recognized to be someone who is of high morality and high spirituality. So similarly in Islam, it is an extending this practice and saying that we have to take care of the guests. Now that means that we need to take care of the people, and so having what we call public spaces is very important in a city. What is public space? Public spaces simply means the spaces where the public can access all the time without any permission. Sometimes we have public spaces in Islamic city like in Kuala Lumpur, but you need to have the police permission, you need to have the DBKL permission. I think this is not real public spaces because it seems to be owned by the DBKL, which is not right. We need to look at public spaces as spaces for public. Of course, there must be some sort of management in order to control traffic and things like that. But we need to have, in a democracy, how the people can use the space appropriately for the benefit of everyone, whether it is for political, whether it is for social, or whether it is for educational purposes, or marketing, or having a pasar malam, so that to elevate the economic status. Then this needs to be facilitated. It doesn't mean that anyone can just come in and use. I think, of course, the municipality need to take care of that, but the municipality is to facilitate. Of course, when we have people who we think are really having bad intention, of course, then we may need to say that this is not allowed. I think this one needs to be understood, that the idea of facilitating does not mean free for all, where people will just come and say stage a rally against a certain race or against a certain faith, and this would not be allowed both by the police as well as by the municipality. But in spirit, we need spaces such as the KLCC gardens, which is very beautiful, but it's the only one. And we need much of the spaces, where I see in the UK you got a lot of spaces for public to use and to actually feel as if their city belongs to them, because they can own these gardens by having to go there to read or to have a picnic without any permission. And so territorializing the spaces means a lot to the people. Public spaces like town halls and meeting spaces in the municipality should also be there. If we are talking about an Islamic environment, we need to actually remind the leaders. Part of the role of the Muslim is to remind with adab the leadership, and we will be accountable in the hereafter if we do not remind some of the mistakes or bad things that is being done. And so there needs to be public spaces for the people. There should be also reasonably priced spaces for hawkers and small retailers. The municipality should facilitate these retailers, because the fundamental of economic prosperity begins with the small hawkers or people who wish to sell their product. Municipality should just not be looking at those who have a lot of money to invest, and I see that they are giving special attention to that because they pay more taxes. But this is not the right spirit. The right spirit is to have much spaces which are frequented by people, meaning what we call magnet spaces, spaces that can command high rental rate. But in actual fact, some of these spaces need to be allowed to be used by those who are starting out and producing small businesses. Finally, we have the aspect of dignity of life for accountability. In Surah Al-Isra, Allah says, we have made every man's action to cling to his own neck, and we shall bring forth for him on the day of the resurrection a book which he will find wide open. It will be said to him, read your book, sufficient is your own soul this day to make out an account against you. So we should be frightened of this verse, because all of us have to give an account. Why did we have 2 minarets when none is required? Why do we allow a huge dome for grandeur when millions of ringgit can be better spent with the poor? So if we do not give such advice, then we will be accountable. And in the architecture of accountability in administrative buildings, if we have public spaces, as we said just now, then there will be accountability. We should also design spaces so that the leaders or the representative of the people should be able to meet the people and also to discuss. We should not have municipalities or administrative buildings which are like castles with very deep setbacks, with fences all around, beautiful gardens that nobody can use. I think this is not what is known to be Islamic. The Prophet Muhammad was a very simple man and is accessible to all, whether you are a tribal leader or whether you are an old lady asking about some questions in which there is a hadith about such matters. Finally, the idea of accountability can also be looked at in terms of the cemetery design, where cemeteries to me are very important, not a place for the dead. Cemeteries are a place for the living, meaning that cemeteries should be a reminder of accountability. And so if we hide the cemeteries and we do not pass the cemeteries every day when we are going to work or when we are going to the mall or our business, then we will not be reminded. We think that we will live forever until the day that we are sick and close to death. So planning of cities with cemeteries that is well situated, so that we give respect when we pass by, and also remind ourselves not to be placed so far away that you only see it when somebody dies. And I think this is not really necessarily a very good place, a very good way to design. Next, we come to the elements of multiculturalism. In Islam, multiculturalism is very important, as it is said in the Quran, "O humanity, indeed we created you from a male and a female, and made you into peoples and tribes so that you may get to know one another. Surely the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous among you." Now, I put up here also the statement of Siddiq Fadil, one of our great scholars and very pious man, also a leader of social reform in the Islamic reform movement in Malaysia. He said in one of the speeches that God created man sebagai mulia, and therefore we need to make sure that we respect this kemuliaan insan. Many Muslim leaders nowadays who are saying bad things against non-Muslim, but non-Muslims are humans created by God, and these people are making fun of the creation of God, or of Allah, saying that the non-Muslims are immoral, that the non-Muslims are like animals. Now, recently, some people, Muslims and non-Muslims, are like feces or najis. This is said by leaders of Islamic political parties and supported by many people from the popularity of the votes that they have been given to them. To me, this is wrong. This is not giving respect to others, because multiculturalism calls for respect to others. Even the Prophet Muhammad said that you should not say bad things against the mushrikun who has died in war. And also Sidi Fadil mentions in kepelbagaian or diversity, that diversity was created by Allah, and that diversity means strength. It does not mean that we will dilute our sense of Islam. It means strength, and because this is what Allah created. So the heritage of the people from values of multiculturalism that we must honor. Doesn't mean that because we are Muslims and we become the leaders of the society or nation, then we eradicate all the non-Muslims' heritage. Why? Because they are un-Islamic, because they are in so-called not part of the belief system of Islam. All the statues, all the idols are to be eradicated. I don't think this is what is meant by the Prophet Muhammad. When the Prophet Muhammad destroyed the idols in the Kaaba, is merely to affirm the idea of the Abrahamic faith and Islam, not to actually desecrate other people's houses of worship. Even he had said that when you go to war, you are not to disturb the houses of worship, and you are not to disturb those who take refuge in the houses of worship. Now, in Malaysia, we have some practices of the municipality in changing names. Let's say names like Bukit Cina or Jalan having a name of non-Muslim. These are names because of history, and history is part of our society, and Islam is supposed to respect the history of other people. But most Muslims who become administrators, they do not respect, because they think they are doing a favor to Muslim, and this is actually wrong. So the heritage of the people need to be respected. So the planning of houses of worship in the cities need also to be respected, apart from the other heritage of the non-Muslim, so that we become or acknowledge the diversity that is in all of the people. So when you design the city, due consideration must be given to such heritage, so that spaces can be allotted, traffic can be diverted, so that we have to honor this heritage of the people that is considered important. And so we need to also make sure that many of the houses of worship dedicate 10% of their built-up area, so that we can have common spaces. Now, sometimes this is very controversial in Malaysia. If you have a common space like a cafeteria in a church, and if people go to the cafeteria in the church, it is construed as proselytization, which is, I think, this is not right. We need to have common spaces for us to mix. If not, we will be alienating ourselves from others, and this can cause great civil strife and be made use of by unscrupulous politicians who will prey on the fear. And we've seen a lot of that in Malaysia. Every time they would put the fear that the non-Muslims will come and attack, like in May 13. This is wrong. We cannot put fear in that manner and make other people feel uncomfortable. So with better planning of the city to acknowledge the existence of the heritage spaces and the design of common spaces, this would then make it a good, humane Islamic city. Finally, I come to sustainability. And if we read the Quran, we see a lot of the verses like this one, which says about having to look at the mountains and the trees and the rivers. These are the things that God had created, and so sustainability means that we need to honor them, we need to respect them, so that we can pass it on to the future generation. The hadith that says when a man dies, his good deeds come to an end, except three things: ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, and a righteous child who will pray for him, testify to the idea of legacy. What is the legacy that we should live? Should we leave the legacy where the children and the generations of the future will become difficult to live, where a lot of the natural resources has been squandered and has been polluted, and so that will come out to be a very low quality and low dignity of life. Thus, the planning of cities should ensure that nature precedes any kind of development. In a lot of Muslim places or towns and cities, the municipality are irresponsible in giving commercial ventures so much priority that they eliminate all the natural source. And when the issue of flooding comes, then they try to mitigate it in many other ways, when in fact originally the way that nature had meant for the water to flow into its natural absorption and pathways has been not respected. So architecture planning, like what Frank Lloyd Wright had done in his organic architecture, should be part of Islamic architecture where nature reigns supreme, and also that buildings can be managed in such a way that when they grow organically, and this can also add on to the aspect of adaptive reuse of building, so that all of this become a sustainable architecture. Now finally, for my last slide, I would like to conclude by saying that Islamic architecture is about democracy and the dignity of the individual in society. If we understand that each individual must have a certain dignity of existence, then can only we understand what Islam wants of us as a human being and what Allah requires of us. And once we understand that as an architect, then we can implement aspects that will answer this question. Islamic architecture is also about multiculturalism, which is to respect others. If we do not inculcate this idea of respecting others, like what is happening now where Muslims seem to have a false sense of superiority, then we will not achieve a high level of spirituality, because people with high level of spirituality respect others. And by respecting others, we respect their heritage and also architecture of the past that we have to accommodate in terms of the design of the Islamic city. Islamic architecture is also about sustainability, where not only there are resources that must be left to the future generation, but we must acknowledge that these are the signs of God. And if we do not acknowledge the signs of God, where all the trees disappear, where all the rivers become drains, where all the lakes become polluted ponds with smell and toxicity, we will not know the beauty or the existence of God from the beauty of His creation. Why? Because we've eliminated His creation, and we've eliminated also, or we have dirtied or polluted what He had created to be pure. Finally, Islamic cities and buildings are a reflection of the most humanistic values and characteristics of a society. So, Islamic city planning and architecture is simply a reflection that Muslims are a humane society, high civilizing society, and this is what we must understand about the idea of dignity to everyone, idea of respecting everyone, and the idea of honoring nature, so that we can have a future for our future. Thank you very much.